Okay. Right, hello everybody. This is my beautiful daughter, Danielle.
Hi.
And we're going to talk a little bit now to you about the difficulties as a family that we have had trying to sort out my brother's care after he had a stroke a couple of months ago. So luckily for me, my beautiful daughter, Danielle, has stepped in and been able to help in sorting out all of his care and the financial side of everything. So,
I mean, I've tried.
You've tried.
I've tried my best.
And you've done very well, Danielle. So the situation is, as most of you probably are aware, that when somebody has a stroke, their brain is not working correctly. So in order to do anything, even something as simple as access your phone, your mobile phone, and as we all know, our life is on our mobile phone. So the difficulty with that, when you have somebody whose brain is not working, they're unable to know how to access their phone and all the information that's on their phone. So it's been incredibly challenging. So when my brother had his stroke, and he won't mind me talking about this, well, he probably won't even understand that I'm doing this, will he? Bless him. So he had recently, he split up from his wife a year previous to the stroke that he had, and hadn't changed his next of kin with his doctors, with anybody. So when something like this happens and your ability to do anything is zero, with the doctors and with the hospitals, his next of kin was his ex-wife, which isn't a great idea. So this is a little bit of a warning to everybody, to any of you. If you split up from somebody or get divorced from somebody and that person is no longer in your life or you want them to be a part of sorting out your finances or everything else that comes with it, please change your next of kin. But don't just change your next of kin to anybody. Make sure that that person will be able to act on your behalf should anything happen, which is key, isn't it? So somebody a little bit older who, for instance, a brother, a sister, or somebody like that, that's a cousin, anybody, or even a really, really close friend, somebody who you can trust and who actually perhaps won't be emotionally involved as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a good thing to have some important talks with the people that you love and kind of saying, I'm getting a bit older. It's probably a good thing to maybe think about these things, because you can also get power of attorneys in place, which is for while you have capacity, it's probably a good idea if we sort that out now,
definitely
while you're still quite young. It does cost a little bit of money, but it's worth it. For example, with my uncle, because we didn't have any power of attorneys in place, we couldn't get access to any of his bank details or anything that involves passwords. We were not able to gain access to, whereas if we'd had power of attorney in place, we would have been able to.
Yeah.
Which meant that we would have been able to look at the outgoings that he has in his bank. We would have been able to look at his direct debits and maybe cancel some of them that he isn't able to use anymore. But we wouldn't have been able to do that without the power of attorney, and we didn't, unfortunately.
No, and it was a real struggle. So me and Danielle went to see him one day, and we had his phone with him, and we're having to almost help him go into his phone. Because as we all know, if anything happened to any of us right now, if we lost our phones, anything as simple as that, how easy is it for you to access your bank account or to access anything? So since this happened to my brother, I still haven't done it, so that's crazy, right? So I'm going to, as I'm at my daughter's now, leave everything with my daughter. So a little book of all of my passwords to get into everything, because trust me, it has been incredibly hard. So my brother was on a good salary and a good job. So all of a sudden that stops. That stops because he can't work and he's unable to work for some time. So he went automatically onto statutory sick pay, which is £90 a week?
Yeah, about £90 a week. And it will vary from job to job. So another good point is to have your contract printed out and at home, easily accessible to family so that they can kind of see, because we couldn't get hold of that to know if he was getting any sick pay. Some companies pay amazing sick pay. Unfortunately, my uncles didn't.
In this case, didn't. So all of a sudden, you go from earning some really good money and being able to pay your mortgage, your bills, any child maintenance, any other direct debits that you've got going out that are incredibly important, to nothing, to practically nothing. And it's been tough. So Danielle had to liaise with my brother's daughter, and then we had to get some friends involved because we don't live near each other as well. So you have the geography issue. So my brother lives an hour away from my daughter. I obviously lived in Portugal. So trying to liaise with his friends, and we had to wait for friends to pop and see him, didn't we? Yeah. So it's been really tough. So this is just a big warning. So luckily, Danielle knew a little bit about the system and knew that you were able to claim. That was just
luck. It was just luck that I happen to have a son with additional needs. So I've recently been through the process of claiming certain benefits. So I just happened to know a little bit about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a clue where to start. And to be honest, even though I had an idea, it was not easy to claim benefits for someone who has had a stroke or in a similar circumstance, maybe a brain injury or anything like that, where they just don't have the understanding or the comprehension of the system. It just proved to be really, really hard.
Really, really difficult, wasn't it? Because, for instance, at the beginning, you'd speak to a department somewhere and they would say, okay, we're going to send an email to Adrian so that he needs to go into that email and fill out the details or forward it on to somebody.
Yeah,
if you can all hear my grandson, my grandson's in the background calling, Nana, Nana. This is reality, isn't it?
Sorry,
Don't apologise. If you all hear my little grandson shouting Nana, he wants me to go and play. So it was just something as simple as that. So so the companies were sending him an email or a text to say access.
It was ridiculous. And it was like, he needs to come in for a meeting. I'm like, he can't drive. I can't tell him to get on a bus. He won't understand that he has to get onto a bus. Like how he has to have an interview that he's not fit for work. I'm like, he doesn't understand that. He's not understanding. And with the Universal Credit, you have like an online system to log into. And I was trying to say to them, he physically wouldn't be able to type in like Universal Credit. He could say benefits and seem comprehensive, but he wouldn't have a clue how to log into the system and then get the password to then log back in. He wouldn't be able to do it. But trying to explain that to them was really, really hard, and I was getting nowhere. So I ended up having to ring Citizens Advice, and even they were stumped. They were like, unless you can get him in there, it's like impossible. So then I had to get his friends involved, which is quite personal, to ask them to take him to a job centre to claim benefits. I think any man would find that quite hard on their pride. Luckily, my uncle is quite, chilled out, a bit like mum, but for some men or women, they would find that quite difficult. But I had to get him to take him in, so I had to arrange the appointments. I'm like, I'm really sorry, I want to be able to help, but I'm so far away, can't get down as often, because the appointments are sometimes every other day to go in, because they need doctor's notes from his doctor. I mean, after it first happened and he was in the hospital, I went down to see him in the hospital, what was it, the day after? Literally the day after it happened. And, from the look of him, I thought he was going to be in hospital for a long time. And I was due on holiday on the Saturday.
Yeah.
Went on holiday for 2 weeks. I came back and he'd been discharged from hospital. And I was like, why has no one told me this? Because I've worked in care a long time. I would have said, like, don't discharge him without a proper care package in place. Because unfortunately, his next of kin was being lovely and trying to be really helpful. But if someone says, I can deal with it, unfortunately, the social care system will say, okay, there you go, kind of see you later. Whereas actually, she doesn't live with him. She isn't a massive part of his life. So it meant he should have had a social worker in place that would have supported all of this. But because she went, it's okay, I can help.
Yeah. Which I'm sure a lot of people
and you would
do that.
Absolutely
but
would.
It's not until they come out of hospital that you realise the challenges that are actually involved. Something similar happened to me when my mum died 16 years ago of a brain tumour. Brain tumour was very similar to a stroke.
Yeah.
Because the brain's not telling people how to do anything. So luckily I had been made power of attorney, but something that really used to really annoy me was the hospital. I mean, the NHS, big thumbs up, the NHS.
Amazing.
But my mum was in hospital after having a really serious seizure, and she was in hospital, and the nurse or whoever brings the lunch along, and my mum used to like her food, they put her food, so her lunch or her breakfast, on her tray by the bed. But because she'd had a brain tumour, her brain was not telling her how to eat that food. So every 3 times a day, the nurse would come along and go, "Oh, not hungry, Norma?" And they'd pick it up and off they go. My poor mother sat there going, "I'm starving." You know, in her head, she's going, "I'm starving, but I cannot communicate how to eat." Oh, my little grandson has got out of the bath and he's come to join us. You cold, darling? Here he is. He was cold in the bath. So this is our wonderful life. But this was just a quick insight for you all on how important it is to make sure that a loved one or somebody that you trust.
I want to put my jammies on.
Okay, darling. So it's really important, everybody, even when we're fit and healthy and well, to make sure that these things are in place.
Talk about it with your families.
Yeah.
Have those conversations.
Please
Get power
do.
of attorneys in place. It's well worth it.
Please do. Anyway, thank you for
Thank
watching,
you,
everybody.
guys.
Take care. See you all
Bye.
soon.